In a time where masculinity is seen by many from opposing sides of the cultural spectrum to be in crisis, it's a good idea to turn to examples from different cultures and stories of men who exemplify the archetypes of what it is to be a perfect man. What we find is that the traits that characterize these men are very different to what masculinity has come to be associated with in modern Western culture. The Hindu epic, the Ramayana, begins with the author Valmiki issuing a challenge to the sage Narada about whether there is a perfect man in the world today. The wise sage Narada replies that yes, there is a perfect man alive today, and it is Rama, the prince of Ayodhya. Lord Rama is the main character of the epic Ramayana and is one of the most iconic figures within Hindu mythology. Lord Rama, within the Hindu tradition, is known as a Purushottam, which can be translated as the ideal or perfect man. What is meant by this is that Lord Rama played many roles in his life. He is the son to his father, King Dashratha. He is the husband to his wife Sita, and he is prince and then king of Ayodhya. He is viewed as playing each of these roles perfectly: the ideal son, ideal husband, and ideal king. This is why he is seen as the ideal man. Now, what is interesting is that many other traditions also have a concept of an ideal man, and within the Sikh tradition, that is considered to be Guru Gobind Singh, the 10th and final human guru of the Sikhs. Just like Lord Rama, he is seen as the perfect son to his father, the 9th Guru, Guru Tegh Bahadur. He is seen as embodying the ideal of being a perfect householder, and is seen by Sikhs as the perfect leader both militarily and spiritually. Now, you might be wondering why I have also included Aragorn, the fictional character from The Lord of the Rings here. In recent years, his portrayal by Viggo Mortensen in Peter Jackson's trilogy has come to be seen as an antidote to the rise in toxic masculinity. Aragorn is shown to be a humble warrior who works tirelessly for his friends and people. He is not afraid to laugh, cry, and sing in front of others. He is shown to be a loving husband to his wife Arwen and a king who leads from the front. Before I begin, I want to deal with anyone who might get offended at me picking these 3 examples and bunching them together within this video. I want to be clear that I am not comparing these 3 figures to determine who is the most perfect man. What I want to show is that the archetype of a perfect man comes out in all cultures and has certain universal qualities. Whether it's a fictional character like Aragorn or religious and cultural figures like Guru Gobind Singh and Lord Rama. This video is not a religious or theological analysis, but hopefully something that will inspire anyone watching to learn more about what it means to be a good person, follow one's duty, and inspire others. Turning back to the Ramayana, the author Valmiki, when asking about whether there is a perfect man in the world, goes on to list a set of qualities that would signify someone being an ideal man. Now these are dutiful, truthful, kind to all, learned, patient, free of envy, self-controlled, slow to anger, pleasing to behold, and furious in battle. Now, this is a big list, so I want to distill them into 4 broader qualities. Now, these are virtuous leadership, duty and sacrifice, self-control, and benevolence to all. The reason I've picked out these 4 qualities is that they map onto the 4 masculine archetypes inspired by Jungian psychology, which are the archetypes of the king, warrior, magician, and lover. Now, this video is not an argument for or against Jungian psychology or the notion of these archetypes. I'm just using these 4 as a tool to demonstrate that Lord Rama, Guru Gobind Singh, and Aragorn embody these archetypes and demonstrate them in action. They also cohere with the list given at the start of the Ramayana. Let's start with duty and sacrifice first, the warrior archetype. The concept of duty is very closely tied to the Indian concept of dharma. Dharma has many meanings, but one aspect is that each of us has a different duty to fulfill, and it is up to each of us to determine what our duty is and to fulfill it to the best of our ability, without concern for the outcome. Famously, in the Hindu text, the Bhagavad Gita, the Prince Arjuna, whilst on the field of battle, staring at his family members, who are now his enemies, toys with the idea of laying down his weapons and not fighting. Krishna, the Hindu deity, tells him he has not understood the concept of dharma. He tells Arjuna that as a prince and warrior, it is his duty to fight on the battlefield, and that it is just and appropriate to fight against those who are on the course of evil actions. Turning to Lord Rama, we can see a perfect example of fulfilling one's duty in a slightly different way. His father, the King Dashratha, in order to fulfill a promise to one of his wives, has no choice but to banish Rama to the forest in exile for 14 years, whilst his brother becomes king in his stead. Instead of resisting, he sees this as a part of his duty as a son and leaves with his wife and brother Lakshmana without question. He sacrifices his own comfort and his right to the throne for duty and harbours no ill will to his father whilst doing so. Now this flies against what many might consider the right action, as you could say a real man would not leave willingly, he would fight for what is his. But this completely misses the point of what it means to fulfill one's duty. Rama does not want to be king for himself. He wants what is best for all those around him, and if that means going into exile, then he is glad to do it. Guru Gobind Singh Ji's life is also one of sacrifice. During the famous Battle of Jamkor, where 46 were being attacked by countless Mughal enemy, he allows his two eldest sons to go out into the battlefield and views them as no different from his other soldiers. When they attain martyrdom during the battle, he does not despair, but understands he is fulfilling his duty as a father and leader. Following this incident, he decides that he too wants to fight, but is ordered not to do so by his closest advisors. Again here, some people might think it is not appropriate for a leader to subdue his wishes and listen to his subordinates, but as Guru Gobind Singh Ji is not coming from a place of ego, he listens to his senior soldiers and decides to leave into the jungle to live on and fight another day. He understands his duty is not just to himself, but to his people as a whole. With Aragorn, there is a scene in The Return of the King on the eve of the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, where Elrond tells Aragorn to venture into the mountain and confront the King of the Dead and have his army fight alongside him. You can see how uncomfortable he seems at the idea of this. Knowing that this is the right thing to do, he decides to leave in the middle of the night without informing the rest of the camp so as not to install false hope. He is willing to sacrifice his personal reputation and life for the chance of victory for the armies of men. With Lord Rama and Guru Gobind Singh Ji, it's often tricky to relate to them as they embody perfection and decisiveness in everything to do, especially as they are considered divine by their followers. Aragorn, on the other hand, struggles with his duty in the movies, but grows into the man he is supposed to be through his trials and tribulations. Knowing one's duty in these examples is not a fixed thing that you can use your mind to figure out and plan. It is changing moment to moment as life presents new challenges to us. What these three figures have in common is their ability to put their ego to the side and do the right thing in the specific moment when it is needed. Virtuous leadership. King. When we think of leadership, it is easy to conjure up the image of a ruler making decisions from a throne, but true virtuous leadership is the ability of the leader to install virtues in those he leads in order for them to become the best and strongest versions of themselves. The easiest way to bring out the qualities of virtuous leadership for our three figures is to look at their counterpart rulers or the antagonists during battle. In the Ramayana, the demon king Ravana, whilst an effective warrior, is so blinded by arrogance that he never takes the threat of Rama's army as seriously as he should. He chooses to send out his most powerful warriors to fight and only joins the battlefield himself when he has no choice left. Contrast this with Lord Rama, who is highly active in the planning of the battle and knows the right moment to enter the field of battle himself. He leads from the front rather than sitting back. He inspires others to fight and find their own strength. Ravana, on the other hand, thinks he is the most powerful being in the world, and it is this hubris that leads to his downfall. Turning to Guru Gobind Singh, the Mughal emperor that was in power during most of the Guru's life was Aurangzeb, who was notorious for being brutal towards any opposition, as well as using power to oppress non-Muslim people. This is in direct contrast to the way the Sikh Gurus operated. Guru Gobind Singh Ji would only fight out of self-defense when there was no other choice. Famously, there was a time when Hindu Kashmiri Pandits came to his father, the ninth Guru, for sanctuary, saying they were at risk at being converted. It was Guru Gobind Singh, at the young age of 9, who told his own father that he should lay down his life to ensure the freedom for people to practice their own religion. In The Lord of the Rings, the main antagonist Sauron is hard to compare to anyone due to the ephemeral nature of his character, but we can compare the leadership of Saruman and Aragorn. Saruman, like the other antagonists, wishes to impose his will and vision on the world by amassing a large army to conquer the kingdom of Rohan. During the last stand at Helm's Deep, it is Aragorn who inspires the men around him, including the king of Rohan, Theoden, and is willing to die defending their kingdom, despite knowing that he is the rightful heir to the throne of the neighbouring kingdom of Gondor. He leads from the front during the battle, while Saruman stays behind in his Tower of Orthanc. These three figures are effective leaders because they are able to leave aside any notions of arrogance and are instead focused on inspiring others and overcoming the obstacles in their way. They are the first to step up when it comes to making difficult decisions, even when the biggest impact of those decisions will be on them. Self-control, magician. Knowing the right moment to display the right emotions in the right measure is the mark of a fully self-realized being. Knowing when to cry, when to laugh, when to be quiet, and when to talk is not easy. What is easy is to be swayed by our own minds. Whatever emotion arises, we indulge and let burst forth. That is not what these three figures display in their actions. They instead show us what it means to have true self-control over our minds and actions. Turning back to the famous moment in the Ramayana where Rama decides to accept his exile and renounce his right to kingship. His own mother is anguished at this, and his brother Lakshmana urges him in anger to take up arms and fight for his right. In response to this, he consoles both of them and sweetly tells them that it is not right to resist and fight, but to gladly accept what is happening. He tells his brother that now is not the time for fighting, and they, along with his wife Sita, forsake their royal garb and take on the robes of ascetic forest dwellers. This is a perfect example of self-mastery, as it takes true internal resilience to follow a different path to the one everyone around you is urging you to take. How many times does this happen in our own life, where people pressure us to act in a certain way? Most people give in and follow those around them, but Rama does the exact opposite to this. Guru Gobind Singh Ji's life is rife with examples of self-control. Within Sikh tradition, it is said that when the Guru heard of the death of his youngest 2 sons and mother, he was stoic and said, whilst his 4 sons have been martyred, he has thousands more that are still alive and ready to fight. This gives us an insight into the mindset of the Guru, who is able to not fall into grief or despair upon hearing of the death of his family, but to use their deaths to galvanize his people to become stronger and more determined. The Guru is also not so rash that the only thing on his mind was revenge. He understood that he had to play the long game, and that is exactly what he did. Towards the end of the Fellowship of the Ring, we see the ring corrupt the mind of Boromir, who in a moment of weakness tries to take it from Frodo. Immediately after this, Frodo offers the ring to Aragorn with an open hand. He responds by closing Frodo's hand and telling him he would have gone with him to the end. This moment is pivotal, as it shows that Aragorn has self-control to resist the one thing that is most tempting in the world. He follows this by understanding that he can't go with Frodo on the next part of his journey, and then he tells Frodo to run away from danger, only for him to make a stand against multiple enemies. Being able to resist the ring shows that Aragorn has the inner control to overcome thoughts of being fast-tracked to glory and strength. By resisting, he demonstrates this control in action. Benevolence, lover. It is easy to be kind to one's family and friends, but the true mark of a strong man is the ability to be benevolent and just to his enemies and all the creatures he encounters. It shows true strength to know the extent of your own power and ability, and if you know that, then it makes sense to be good-natured to all who cross your path by default, and only when it is absolutely needed to fight and show aggression. In the animated film Prince Rama, we see Lord Rama perform the same funeral rites for the fallen soldiers of both his own army and the enemies. His brother angrily questions this, saying it is not appropriate and not right for a warrior to be moved by such emotions. Rama responds saying being a good person is more important than being a warrior, and that whilst they were enemies on the battlefield, they are no longer enemies after death, and that it is the right thing to perform their funeral rites appropriately. This shows that whilst it is justified to fight for what you believe in, this fight should not carry over after the battle is over, and that we should view everyone with the same eyes, whether they were once foes or kin. It is famously said about Guru Gobind Singh Ji that every arrow of his contained gold, so that if they injured an enemy soldier, the gold could be used to pay for medicine for his recovery, and if they killed an enemy soldier, the gold could be used for his funeral rites and for his family. Just like Lord Rama, Guru Gobind Singh Ji understood that his enemies were only enemies on the battlefield at a specific point in time, but they were fellow humans too, fundamentally the same as his own soldiers. In the character of Aragorn in the movies, we see a man who is always kind and compassionate to those who are weaker than him and require reassurance. From the hobbits to the teenager scared to fight at Helm's Deep, he does not see himself as above any other person and becomes someone that people can rely on for strength when theirs is dwindling. Being compassionate is not a mark of weakness, but a mark of true strength, and it is always just to fight against those who wish to enforce their will on others and make them suffer. To conclude, it is clear that there is something universal about the idea of an ideal, heroic man that permeates across all people and all times. The specific examples in different cultures should be seen as role models for all people, instead of modern role models that have risen in recent years. What we can see is that the true ideal man is an inversion of what modern society considers as masculine. It is someone without bravado, ego, and pride. It is someone who serves and looks upon all equally. It is someone who knows their strength and when to use it. It is someone that knows how to support people and lead them strength. So when you want to be inspired and want to change the track of your life, let us turn to figures like Lord Rama, Guru Gobind Singh Ji, and Aragorn and consider what they would do in your shoes.